Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, today we're doing some gel printing with some crazy daisies. Now, these are daisies that I love to have around because, well, check out the colors, right? And this bouquet is a week and a half old or so, and it's to the point where the petals are starting to fall off. So it's time to retire this one. But before I do, I'm going to use these flowers to make a whole bunch of gel prints. The very first thing to do is get some paint onto that gel plate. Now the paint that I'm using is Golden Open, and there's something different about this paint than most of the other paints that I use. And that is that it's got something in it that makes it workable or open longer, meaning this paint is not going to dry very quickly at all. And that's actually why I usually don't use it, because it takes forever for stuff to dry. And when you're making a bunch of gel prints, that can be somewhat of a nuisance. But when you want paint to stay wet, when you want it to stay open or workable, it's extremely handy. Like right now, I really want it to stay workable as I'm getting the flowers arranged here, and you'll see why as we're taking the prints, how that ends up becoming very handy a little bit later in the process. And as I'm putting these flowers on here, yeah, I did think about what color was going where. It really made a difference to me that the colors look nice on there, even though the color of these is not going to show up one little bit in the print. In order to get the details from the flower to show up in your print, you gotta push that flower down. And I'm being very careful as I do this to simply touch the flower. So I'm pushing carefully on the flower, making sure I get great contact between the flower and the paint, but I'm being very, very careful, like I said, not to actually touch any of the wet paint with my fingers. Now to some of you, you might think, hey, this doesn't look very complex, but for someone like me who has patience issues, this was actually a great feat of patience for me to take my time and make sure that each one is fully pressed down, making sure that all those little tips of the leaves, petals, they're not leaves, they're petals. See if I can remember the anatomy of a flower here. Once I'm sure that I've had good contact, then I'm going to remove the flowers. And this is why working with a paint that's going to stay open or wet longer, like with the Golden Open, is extremely handy. Because I don't feel rushed right now. I don't have to race around for stuff. That paint will stay workable for quite a while. So I'm taking a piece of paper here, putting it on there, getting that good contact. And this is just plain old cardstock. There's nothing fancy about this paper. And absolutely, you can use whatever kind of paper you enjoy using when you're doing gel prints. Here in the first print, you can see those flowers that were pressed in the paint, but guess what? The ghost print is going to have even more stuff in it. Usually for me, the ghost print is the one that I like even more than the first one, and this is going to be no exception. Because I'm working with that open paint, it means the paint is definitely staying wet longer, so it's really easy to get that ghost print. So when I lift this one up, you're going to see even more details than what we saw in the first print. So that's the precise and patient way of doing this, to press those flowers down. But I'm going to show you now another way that doesn't take that much patience, and there's an extra little benefit of it that I really love. We're going to start out the same way that we did for the last print by putting some of that black Golden Open paint right on there, braying it all around and getting nice even coverage all over the plate. Oh, and by the way, the plate that I'm using here, this is the 12 by 14 size, and this technique works with any size gel plate. So whatever size you've got, you can absolutely do this with. I'm going to position the 3 flowers on here again, but you'll notice I'm putting the black paint side up from last time. And yeah, those petals are definitely falling off this thing. These flowers are on their very last leg here. But I've put those on there with the paint side up, and that's important for what's about to happen. Last time I pushed them down carefully with my fingertips. This time I'm going to use my whole hand. That's a piece of deli paper that I've put on top, and I'm pushing it down here to make sure that it's touching the paint. And the only thing I'm being careful about is that the flowers don't wiggle around. But other than that, I am just pressing this thing down. The impatient part of me loves doing it this way because this is not precise at all. But there's a benefit of being impatient, and there's a benefit to this that you don't get if you're actually super precise, and that is the deli paper. You see, something's going to be on there that there isn't really any other way to get other than doing it this way. Because when I lift this deli paper up, you're going to see the paint from, of course, on the gel plate, but also from on the flowers. That's where the detail comes from on the insides of the flowers. So once I pull the flowers off of here, then I'm ready to actually take the official prints. Now, as I'm doing this, some of the petals are left behind, and I just gently and carefully remove them. If I was using fresh flowers or ones that weren't quite at the end of their time, probably wouldn't have so many petals falling into things. But this is my way of making sure I get every last little bit of fun out of that bouquet of crazy daisies. Now those daisies are wonderful bright colors, and the prints, well, they're all black and white. And we're going to change that a little bit later in the video because I'm going to show you how to take one of these prints and add colors to it, bringing out the pattern that's on there, the wonderful impression of those flowers. It may look like there's not much paint left on that gel plate, but there definitely is. And you can get another print off of it, especially when you're using open paint, because it stays wet so much longer than regular paint. So it's probably not going to surprise you that it takes this paint longer to dry on your paper too. So once you take a print, you're going to need to set it aside and let it dry, probably a little bit longer than what you would set aside for traditional acrylic paint. So with as little paint as there is on the plate, there's still tons of detail that comes out in this ghost print. What you've seen so far in this video was the beginning of a play session. And I took the rest of that bouquet and I made a mountain of prints. And I did this for two reasons. One is it's just fun to make the prints. And the other reason is there were things I wanted to understand. I had inklings about things, but until I can really get in there and test them out, play with them, I'm not positive. And that's what play did for me today. Helped me figure out a bunch of stuff so that I knew what it was that I needed to do to get it so these flowers really popped. And when I wanted them to be a little bit darker, yep, there was one thing that I did that made that happen. And then if I wanted that old world sort of frescoed Pompeii kind of look, I know what to do now, all because of this play session. And I've taken what I learned, what I figured out, and I've put that into a bonus video because, well, there's too much information to add in here to this video. Now, this bonus video is available as a part of my workshop called Gel Printing Fundamentals. Now, if you're already a member, never fear, just log in and it's waiting for you. When I add bonus content, if you're already in, you absolutely get access to it. And if you're new to Gel Printing Fundamentals, you're wondering what it's about, well, basically, it's about understanding what's going on and why on a gel plate, because it's not random, even if it feels like it, but it's not, so that you can understand what's going on, so that when you're making prints, you can then do things intentionally, do things to get the kind of looks that you love when you're printing. Now, you can find all the details at the link down below, or you can check it all out over on my website at acolorfuljourney.com. Well, let's take one of the prints from the play and let's get some color on these. I mean, after all, they were inspired with crazy daisies, right? We gotta get some color on there. I'm starting out here with art crayons. And you might think, wow, Carolyn, you're not really coloring very neatly there. And that is so very true, because I don't have to. We're gonna blend these colors around, so you just need to get them in the area, in the neighborhood, and then you can start blending them together. So that's why I'm not worrying about precision here or making things exact. Art crayons are water reactive, so that means if I take that paper towel, put a little bit of water on it, and rub it gently over the top, those colors are gonna blend together beautifully. So I don't have to be careful or precise, and I'm gonna get a really nice little ombre look to it. You'll also see later in the video how forgiving these are because, yep, I'm gonna cross a little bit of a color line a little bit, and I'm gonna easily be able to fix that. Once I've got the flowers the way I want them, then I want to put a little bit of color on the background. I'm going to be using acrylic gouache, but I would think this would work with any acrylic paint. You're going to water it down just a little bit and then brush it on an area and then wipe it off. And what you're going to leave behind is a gentle stain on the paper, so the hint of color without it overpowering it. And you'll notice I'm not being very careful around the edges of the flowers because things are going to blend by the time we're done. This isn't about keeping a very crisp and exact line. Colors are meant to blend with this technique. Ever pick a color, just positive it was going to be the right color, and then once you start using it, you go, not exactly? Well, that's what happened to me with the green. I was positive that was going to be great, but you know what? It wasn't for me. And so that's why I decided to bring in that cobalt teal, to add little bits of it here and there. And I thought I was just going to put a little touch of it, and I ended up putting a whole lot more of it. You're about to see me put some green paint in the middle where it was pretty much full strength from the bottle. I hadn't added much water to it, or any water to it at all, it seems. So it went on much heavier, and I took a moment, I kind of got distracted, and I didn't get it wiped off instantly. So that meant it basically started to do some drying, and it made it a little bit harder to remove. so it took a little bit more working it over to get rid of those lines. This wasn't my intention. This was definitely an oops, an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly for me to do a little extra blending. Notice how I really made sure I grabbed some water for that one? And I just keep working it over and over until I get rid of the lines that I didn't like there. In the process of doing the background and taking that wet paper towel and rubbing it around the edges of the flowers, on some of them I've got a little less color there than what I expected. But that's not going to worry me because I can simply take those art crayons and add some more color back onto it when I'm ready. I love things that are forgiving so that you don't have to get it exactly this or precisely that. You get to just be in the moment, add those colors around, and have fun while you're doing it. And speaking of having fun, have you enjoyed this video? Well, if you have, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, hit that subscribe button. That way you'll know as soon as I've got a new video out. If you'd like to know more about gel printing fundamentals, you can find all that information over on the website at acolorfuljourney.com. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.